How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Well, welcome to another edition of Headcases. And have you ever had that inclination of you knew you were going to meet somebody and were dying to ask them questions and you get really excited about it? Well, that's where I am with this guest we have today. But let me give you kind of his street creds, and maybe this will give you a little bit of insight. Maybe you find out who he is. He's a 7-time Emmy-nominated stylist. He is an 11-time Guild member nominee, 4-time Guild Award winner. He is a department head of American Idol, So You Think You Can Dance, America's Got Talent. Also, is some of his celeb, they're on his stables are Lionel Richie, Derek Hugh, Leeza Gibbons, Simon Cowell, Jennifer Hudson, and Kelly Clarkson amongst those peeps. And now here's a GI curveball for you. He was the Soldier of the Year in Fort Hood with the 2nd Armored Division. So let's get into this week's head case, the Hollywood hair guy, Dean Banowetz. Dean, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here on Head Cases. I have been an admirer, and I mean, God almighty, all of those Guild Awards, Emmy Awards, all of that stuff is, some of us only dream of that. And I want to get into that in a short bit, but I always ask people straight off is about what's your hair story? How did you get into the business?
Ooh, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And the hair story is it's pretty fascinating. First and foremost, I am one of 15 kids, born and raised in Iowa. I'm lucky number 13. And so, and we all go by numbers. But, when I was in high school, I was a junior in high school and my dad passed away. And I was the oldest one at home. And I was really kind of trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. And I had scholarships to sing, and I had all of these, avenues that I could pursue for a career, but it never really spoke to me. And so I knew I needed to leave the farm. So I actually joined the Army, and I joined the U.S. Army 1985. And once I got out, I started to study art education and art history. And 2 years in, I was literally just trying to figure things out because I was like, why am I doing this? I don't want to work in a museum and I don't want to teach. What's the point of this? And I just had a coming to Jesus talk with myself, if you will. And I reached out to my brother, Leon, who's number 12. And he goes, I really think you should do hair. And I was like, what are you even talking about hair? And he's an art director for a tourist magazine in Dallas at the time. And he goes, listen, you've got a great base in art education. And he goes, you got a great personality. And I know how much money we have to pay people to do hair and makeup, and people would love to work with you. And I go, but I've never thought about hair. And he was like, you used to braid the tails on the cows when you were supposed to be milking them. Just do hair. And that's literally how it started. And I enrolled at Bill Hills College of Cosmetology in Davenport, Iowa, which literally was in the back of a furniture carpet warehouse. And it was hideous. I mean, it needed a full remodel. But I have to tell you, it's the first time I ever walked into an educational institution and I felt like I was home. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt, welcomed, and I didn't know the first thing about hair. I didn't know what a Marcel iron was. I didn't know any of that. And I was so excited to just learn. And that's really how it started.
So give me first of all, that's absolutely amazing story. I love it. What was it? I remember me walking in and I didn't want to, I did it. The only reason I got in because my mom did hair and I knew I couldn't get fired. And I had a couple of rough years in there, and I had a come to Jesus thing that happened. However, and I've told it on here before, just about somebody coming in and telling me don't cut my hair today because I'm going to Montreal to get a good haircut. But that was my turning point in there. But I remember going into school, and I was like you. I knew nothing. Believe me, I knew how to milk cows because I was on the farm, but I knew nothing about hair because I'd go in the salon, I'd watch, but I knew nothing about it. How old I was, because when I got into it, I just got out of, what I always say when I was finished with grade 12, which meant I was finished with grade 12. I never said I passed grade 12. So when I was finished with it, but the reality is I remember all the kids that were in there were pretty much my age. How old were you when you got in? Was there some disparity in age? Because if you went to,
Yeah, because
you were in the Army?
I was in the Army, and everybody else in my high school, graduating class, they're getting out of college. They had already done their 4 years and all of this, and I was like, I am so far behind. And
Yeah.
I remember I graduated from beauty school at 26, and I thought that was so old. And it was just, I constantly, even today, I'm like, listen, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Right now in my life, this is where I'm supposed to be. And once I started to just say that out loud and mean it to myself, I just said yes to honestly every opportunity I could.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's because I think, I don't know if that was just a sign of the times that we had then. I mean, when I went to, I can't remember what year it was, 67, I think 66 or 67 is when I went to hair school. I'm actually was born on a leap year, so I'm actually only like 30 some years
Love
old.
that.
But the reality is I think it's different now. Because I know in schools, you go into schools now as you do,
Yes.
as I do,
And it's
and
much older. It's
you'll
much
see,
older.
you'll still get the young kids that are just straight out of school, but people have been through a career, they've been to college, they didn't like college, and now they're doing what they always wanted to do. What's it like what do you see in the differences when you go into those schools? Is there any difference in their mindset or their willingness or whatever? What do you notice?
Well, it's interesting because I do get because I probably lecture at, I would say, 30 plus public schools a year, motivational, my journey from Iowa to LA. And
Yeah.
there are so many times people come up and they're like, this is, a new chapter for me. And, I feel like I'm the senior in this school. And I'm like, well, how old are you? And, I've had everything from 36 up to 55.
Wow.
And I go, all you need to remember is if this is feeding your soul and it's giving you excitement and energy and enthusiasm, this is where you're supposed to be. If this is not giving you that joy, then of course you need to explore something else. I go, but just give it time, because there is so much wisdom in your years that you don't even know about, and you have other things that other students don't have, and that's life experience, which is, to me, by far more beneficial than anything else, because you just get it, you understand it. Sometimes we have to course correct. Sometimes we just have to jump into a whole new world. And I'm a firm believer, if you show up and you participate, great things will happen for you. But if you show up and you don't participate, you're an energy suck, and you suck the energy out of the room, and that's not good, because we all know those people who show up, but they don't want to participate.
Yeah.
And I go, those two things, if you do those two things, great things are really going to happen for you.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I loved what you said, because you made that the time element, and all those people watching and listening right now, wherever you are at, is just to remember that the time and the maturity that you have that goes along with the time allows you to handle things a lot better than what you did. I mean, I remember having a fight with my then girlfriend, and I would go into school and I would be all pissy, for the lack of a better word, upset, etc. Didn't leave my stuff at the door, and I would sit there, and I'll never forget this. I would sit and at the long benches that we had with the mirror in front of it and your barbicide container, and we always had a stack of end papers because you're always doing perms, and I can remember making boats out of the end papers and floating them in the barbicide and watching them sink, and I figured that's what's happening in my life right now. And I remember the teacher, the principal would always walk by and say, Baran, go do something. And so I'd pick up a rag and I'd clean my station, and she would come up to me and say, Chris, when you have your salon, you're going to have the cleanest salon in of any salon in town. No customers, but the cleanest salon in town. And I say that because, when to your point, that when you have some time behind the belt and some life experience and some maturity, you won't let those little rough spots in your life get involved with your success rate that you're going through.
Correct.
And I think that you need that. And that's why I take my hats off to anybody who's got that. They know they wanted hair and they jump into it. So,
well, and
thank you so much.
The thing that I always say whenever I have that, because listen, we're human, we're going to have those moments where this is the last place we want to be. We have other things on our mind, but we always have to remember we attract who we are. Mm-hmm. So if you're not liking the clients that you're attracting, take a look in the mirror and do some serious self-searching, because if you're late all the time, you're going to attract late clients. And it's the thing too, is like, I've heard it so many times. I don't like this. I don't like this. I go, then change it in yourself. And it's tough to hear, but I've had to do it. I've had to do it to myself over and over. And I'm like, okay, why am I feeling this way? I need to get rid of this and focus and just do whatever we can do to be better and to really put out what we want to get back.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard it said, and I'm with you 100% on that. We're looking in the mirror. And I heard people say that it's just a matter of, when you look at yourself, just say, what are you going to do? And label whatever it is that you're feeling. So in other words, if you're pissed off at something, say, look, I'm pissed off. And then just say, why am I pissed off? Or if you're frustrated with something, like they say, as soon as you label it, then you'll have a better chance of that feeling and that emotion going away.
Right.
Okay, just to say, well, I'm frustrated. Why am I frustrated? Well, it's because of X, Y, Z. Well, what do I need to do about it? Well, it's this person. Well, then let's go talk to that person and get it out of the way. And sometimes we just harbor that and we become professionals at that emotion, as opposed to just getting it out of the way so that we can have the life we want.
And I think, too, one of the big questions is what can I do anything right now to change this? And if the answer is no, then put it away until you can deal with it. Yeah. And I'm always of that mindset as well.
Isn't it really interesting? And for people watching and listening right now, other than just before, this is really the first time that we've met.
Yes.
And, but I feel, I think that when you're in a position in our industry and whatever we want to label it, a leadership position, a higher up position, a thing where you've gained certain notoriety, whatever, I hate to label it in that regard, but I think you get a certain sense of understanding of human nature and where that goes. And here's the reason I'm bringing that up. In the research that I was doing before, and I have questions that are written down, everything was about Hollywood and you're fantastic. I mean, we've got to at some point talk about your beard. For those people who may not know you, you've got to look up Dean and look at his beard, et cetera. And I want to get to those things as well. But, and I would be remiss if I didn't take a light break from what we were talking about and really talk about the beard that you had first. And because we went about your hair story, but when I first saw you, not on the research, but when I've seen you before, your beard was freaking amazing.
Thanks.
And you had that long hair that went along with it, and you had that. I had to label it. If I had to give everybody an image of it right now, if you're just listening, it was part Voldemort, part Gandalf, and with a little bit of Hagrid mixed in there. But it was almost mythical.
I got a lot of, are you on Game of Thrones? And I go, no, but I should be. No.
Yes, of course you have. Yes, if you know anybody. So obviously when you were bringing that beard out to its fruition, that was in the time when, everybody was getting into beards.
Yes.
But I have to say, yours was magnificent.
Thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. And you know how that all started. One of the shows that I used to work on was To Tell the Truth, and it's been a reboot, and you will have some iconic person. Like we had the world beard and mustache champion on, and we had two decoys. And on the decoys, I had to literally put in hair extensions to make these beards look amazing. And the guy who won, he goes, dude, you've got a great beard. You should totally do that. And I go, tell me what I need to do. And he goes, really? Just grow it. Most people don't have the patience to grow a beard. And literally after that show, I shaved, and I'm like, it's on. And I grew it for 4.5 years. And the category, because if you just Google beard and mustache championship, there's so many different categories. And the one category I really was inspired by was the Garibaldi, which is a full beard that's literally no more than 8 inches, but you can't use any styling products. You can't do any enhancements or anything, nothing like that. It was just your natural beard. And the very first competition I ever did, I got 3rd place. And every single competition goes to charity. There's zero money that's given for prizes. We get a lot of beard products and that sort of thing. But there's such a strong community of all of these guys that grow insane beards. Like I love my beard, but when I got there, I was like, oh dang, I just fit in. And it was a really great experience. And I had won the 2nd National Beard and Mustache Championship, 2nd place, and it was in Chicago of 19. And I was going to go to the World Championship that was going to be in New Zealand, but it was canceled for COVID. And then I was like, you know what? I am a little obsessed with getting a world title. And I'm a Leo. If I set my mind to something, I'm a little obnoxious about getting it. I have to do it. And it was after COVID, and I was like, you know what? I want to get a world title. And I just, the assistant I had at that time, she was like, maybe you should break a Guinness Book of World Records. And I'm like, it's on. What record do I need to break? And she goes, I'm going to do some research. And I broke the Guinness Book of World Records for most bobby pins in my beard, which was 4,831. I have the plaque on this corner in the back. But it literally took 14 plus hours. And because it was during COVID, we had to film every second because they had they wouldn't send an adjudicator to just oversee it. So we had all of these witnesses, and it just took forever. And I was completely obsessed with doing it and taking tiny sections and loading up that beard because I wanted to, number one, raise money for charity. One of my assistants had passed away at the age of 36 from colon cancer. She had 2 kids and a husband. And I was like, I want to do something. She was literally one of my best friends. And we raised like 30 grand for her kids' college education by putting bobby pins in my beard. So I was like, when I reached 2,500 bobby pins, they go, you've broken it. You can stop. And I was like, I'm not stopping until all of these fingers are full of blisters because no one's going to outdo me. Because trust me, it was a lot. And, my reward for that is a really awesome plaque. And I have to tell you, one of my nieces, because I've got 53 nieces and nephews and just a massive family. And she goes, why would you do that? And I go, I am one person in a massive family. What are you going to do to stand out? She goes, fair.
Fair. Yeah.
Point taken. And it was just a whole different avenue. I literally took my beard off because I like to get skin checks at least every 5 years. And this is like a weekend, and I'm not going to grow the massive beard back, but I'm growing it back for some more fun things to do.
Yeah. Well, see that there's a couple things that I wanted to find out there. That one of my questions you just answered because when you have this fantastic beard, why would you shave it? You know,
Right.
and I mean, obviously time and all of that time is right, but
Well,
it was nice just
to really
checking.
to really answer that, the reason I shaved it
Yeah.
was because on set we had to wear masks and shields, and I would get so hot, and my
Oh,
beard
yeah.
would be everywhere. I'd have to put it in a pony and braid it, put it in a knot, a bun, and it was just, I mean, every day you're doing that for 14 hours a day. It
Oh,
was intense. But that's the
wow.
reason I cut it. But you can continue.
Yeah. But so back to the point, you had to put the bobby pins in. You couldn't have somebody else doing it.
No, I had to.
Wow. I can understand what I don't know how anybody got to 2,000, much less 4,000. I mean, I think that says something for your determination. That's amazing.
I mean, if I always tell people, if you're going to date a guy with a beard because they're patient.
Yeah. Good point.
Right.
Now, so you had a great segue there for us. Is that so when you had that, what kind of press did you get? Press out of that as well?
You know, I would decorate it every year for Christmas many times. I
Uh,
have, oh God, there's probably 50 some odd pictures of me decorating the beard. And it was just such a conversation piece. And I loved it because, you know, when I'm working on set, people are like, whoa, you've got this massive, beautiful beard. And people were, Howie Mandel was completely obsessed with it on America's Got Talent. And he was like, I really want to touch it, but he's such a germaphobe. And of course,
uh-huh.
I go, get in it. This beard gets more care than a family of 5. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's been reconditioned multiple times in the past 2 days, you know, and just to have fun with it. And it was great.
Yeah,
Simon Cowell's boy
listen.
literally thought I was Hagrid for a long time.
Yeah, well, there you go. You know, I wish that we would have been closer together, because and I don't know if you could have standed it, but when you had those, what I wrote down, 4,831 pins in your hair, and I can remember doing a show that we had to do for a I can't remember if it was it was the opening of the show for the symposium, and we made. I think we had to make, whether it was 9 or 11 wigs out of tiny hairpins.
Mm,
Not hairpins as in that you put in hair, but the ones used for sewing, the closed up
yes.
ones. And by the end of those, because I think each one of those had, I can't remember, how many thousands of ones we had to have in each wig. And again, raw fingers, etc. But my point would have been, wouldn't it have been great if you had all those pins in there and then put on one of those wigs and pull? Now you talk about a metalhead.
Yes. Full
You would have
metal.
had a metalhead.
Well, and it
Full metal.
was 6.5 pounds. Like it,
Yeah.
literally, we weighed it afterwards, and I was like, "Oh dang, I can handle a lot."
Yeah. So you had a great segue in there for talking about, because you mentioned Howie and the fellow Canadian, and tell us what was it like for you? And I only say I came from a small town in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. We only had like 5,000 people in town. We didn't have any place in town you could get it. I had to go to the next city, Saskatoon, in order to get to go to a school, Marvell Beauty School. So I think I get it when you're coming from a small town and you reach the level that you're at now. What was that like for you when you went from Iowa and had to make that step? So many people wouldn't think, well, I'm from this small town, I can never do that. But what happened to you that you went, this is what I'm doing?
Well, I'm a big goal setter. And for me, I have 4 parts to a goal. You have to be realistic about what it is you want. You have to be specific. You've got to do your due diligence. You've got to do that research, if you will. And then you have to have a deadline. And I was talking with one of my employees at the time, and we talk about goals for retail sales and service sales and that sort of thing. And we had gone through all of her stuff, and this is part of my lecture too that I do at a lot of Paul Mitchell schools. But she did something to me that wasn't done before. And she turned it around on me and she was like, what are your goals? And I go, honestly, my goal is literally to keep this salon alive and thriving. And she goes, no, but you have to have your own personal goal, just like we do as well. And I was like, okay, I will definitely participate in this, because what I've always wanted to do was do hair for TV and film. Of course, I live in the middle of Iowa. Now, realistically, my options would be to do, I don't know, a farmer's hair for a Farm and Fleet commercial, or drive 45 minutes to a bigger city to do a blowout for an anchor. But literally those were the realistic options for me in that location. And just due diligence and you know, when you do that research and take accountability, the way I take accountability for things is I talk about it. And at that time, I was a platform artist for Matrix. And every single time I would do a class, I was like, hey, if any of you guys hear of a place that teaches you how to do hair for TV and film, please let me know, because I couldn't find anything. Yeah. And my employee and I were chatting, and we always do a 6-month review, you know, like you've got 6 months for this deadline. And she looked at me and she goes, I don't think you can do this in 6 months. And again, I'm a Leo. So if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to bend over backwards to make it happen. And lo and behold, one of my friends like snail mailed me a newspaper clipping for a school in Santa Monica, California. I signed up for it. I thought it was incredibly expensive, but you know, when you need a large amount of money that you don't have, and somehow that money finds you legally, you got to do it. Yep. Yeah. And I just took the plunge. I went out. I had the best time. I met some people from all over the US, and the woman who owns the school said, you should live in LA and work out here. And I go, I have my salon and all of that. I didn't realize she was a headhunter, and she gave my name to a bunch of productions, and which kind of freaked me out, because I had people reaching out to me, and I called her and I go, are you giving my name to people? And she goes, yes, you need to move to LA. And I was like, you need to leave me alone, because you are stalkerish and you're freaking me out right now. And she goes, you apply for one job and I'll leave you alone. I applied at the television show Extra. I faxed my resume. They called me within 10 minutes. A week and a half later, I flew out to do an interview. 5 days after that, they reached out and told me that I had gotten the job. So I was like, holy cow, I have to move to LA. Every one of my friends
close your salon.
Yeah, I kept the salon open for like 6 months and traveled back and forth, and then I sold it. But all my friends were like, you've got to take this job. This doesn't happen to people that live in Iowa. And I go, well, it just happened to me, and I'm not trying for it. You know? Yeah. And I moved to LA, and it's almost eerie how seamless I fit in. And it was a new experience, and it was I'm working for an entertainment news magazine that's syndicated, that, I don't know, 8+ million people a day see, and there's only 3.5 million people in the state of Iowa. And most are my family. I'm just saying, but for real. And I jumped in with feet first, and I was like, let's do this. And I said yes to every opportunity, and things just, I worked incredibly hard. I remember I was doing Ryan Seacrest, who was, he was a guest correspondent on on Extra. And when he got Idol, he brought me on to do his hair. But because it was a new show, I had to do everybody's hair. And this was the first competition reality show with hair and makeup. And it was a big deal. And it was crazy being in that American Idol bubble, because every week there were thousands and thousands and millions of more viewers. And we're like, whoa, what's happening? And we just ended our 22nd year. I've been with the show for almost 18 years now.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
So, first of all, I guess the word's not applaud, but I'm enamored in the process that you went through. there's a couple of things that I want to talk about in there. Is number one is because you talked about how seamlessly you fit in. And you're like me. You're on the road all the time, and you talk to so many people that are. I'm happy just being behind the chair. That's all I really want to do. But then you have that other side of the people that say, "Look, I love doing hair, but what I really want to get into is I want to do either session work or work for movie and TV and so on." So, I mean, you're there. If anybody is, you're the Hollywood hair guy. What traits would you say that person would have to have? Because you said you fit in seamlessly.
I did. And it was interesting too, because my clients in Iowa were like, "Why are you here?" And I go, well, I don't even know what that means. I'm not going to take offense to it, but my family's here. And I go, you know what? Right now, and I remember saying this and answering their question. I'm like, right now, this is where I'm meant to be. Is this where I'm going to be for the rest of my life? I don't know. But right now, this is where I need to be. And when that opportunity happened, I just said yes. And the thing too is, listen, at that time, I was like, you know what? I'm a great hairdresser. I'm not the best hairdresser, but I am a really good listener. And if you're not a good listener, it's not going to work, because there are so many yes people. And I mean, my biggest pet peeve is when you're giving direction to someone and they're like, yeah, I got it. And I go, then why are we even here if you already know everything that's supposed to happen? And one of my really great qualities is I know when to listen and I know when to speak. Because when you work with celebrity talent, and any talent for that matter, just imagine you're working on someone who's about to sing in front of 40 million people. I want to honor how they are processing their emotions. Because listen, some people are super quiet because they're in their head and they're going through the mechanics of it all. And then you have some people that won't stop talking. So I like to match that energy, and I like to be super mindful of that. And it's all about the attention to detail. I mean, we always say love is in the details. And when little things are done properly, big things happen. So if you see something, I always say something. And I always correct, because listen, I am responsible for this person's look. And I want to make sure when you look good, you feel better. When you feel better, you have more confidence. And I work on competition reality shows. I want to make sure that every single thing I do enhances what they're about to do. They're about to tell a story. If it's through singing or through dancing, it's a storytelling job. And if what I do can enhance that story, I'm all about it. I never want to take away from that story. I want to add to that story. And so those are all key points for me I just hired a new assistant who's going to be flying here from North Carolina. And so it's all new. And those are the qualities that you really have to be mindful of. And, we're always the first people on the set, and we're always the last people off the set. So you just have to be that. You have to be that kind of beacon of light for some of those people.
Yeah. First of all, here's what I wrote down, which I thought was amazing. You've really got to be an active listener. You have to be able to speak up when it's ready, when you do something, and matching energy. And you have to, if you see something, you got to say something, and you have to enhance their story. And when you said that, when I was doing a little bit of research that you told the story about, you have an 80-20 rule.
Yes.
And could you just, because I think that fits in really well here. When you're in that kind of environment, what does an 80-20 rule mean?
Well, for me, and I'll use So You Think You Can Dance, because I worked on that show for a long time, and it's a live show, and it is a lot of work. I mean, there's many, many, many times we will have 4.5 minutes to do a full change, hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And this is where my military background come into play, because I'm a bit of a drill sergeant, because I want to make sure if you are prepared and you're ready, great things will happen. If you're not organized, there's going to be some issues. And so on So You Think You Can Dance, we would get a theme from the creative director. And this one particular theme was, he was like, imagine Galliano and Alexander McQueen having lunch at a sidewalk cafe in Paris. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean? And so that's when I am like 80-20. As long as I am happy with 80% of my creative, I can bend on 20%, 10 for makeup, 10 for wardrobe. And I am clueless. I have no clue what I'm going to do. So I go to wardrobe. I go, hey, what kind of wardrobe are you thinking about? Just like, I really just want to know about shoulders up. And she was like, oh, I want to do this beautiful lace collar. And I go, awesome. Love it. So in order to make wardrobe happy, I know the hair has to go up. All of this has to go away. It has to go up. And then I go to the makeup artist. I'm like, what do you have in mind? And she goes, well, I saw that wardrobe, doing lace. I want to do beautiful lace appliques over the eyes. Great. Hair has to be off the face and up. And number 3 is, I'm not doing anything with lace. It has to be a juxtaposition, something a little bit harder and a little more structured. And so that's the 80-20. As long as I am happy with 80% of that creative, I can bend. It gave me direction to collaborate. And so I know that this is my focus. And then I go back, I go, how many people are wearing hats? And she goes, 2. And I go, done. Who are those 2 people? Because I want to make sure that I adjust appropriately. And things like that just make that entire show gel together. And, when we did that number, the creative director was like, this looks amazing. How did you come up with it? And I love Marina Toybina. She was the wardrobe person. And she goes, it's a collaboration. We listen to each other. Yeah. Which is so true. And so many people who want to do what I do get stuck in their ego where this has to be exactly how it is. Doesn't work that way. You have to collaborate. You have to listen to other creatives and let that help and enhance your thought process as well.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I think that, well, first of all, that's a life skill, isn't it?
Yes.
The 80-20 rule is a life skill. And if you want to have a proper relationship in life, your partner, your friends, or your coworkers, it's the same thing.
Yes.
You have to have an 80-20 rule. I can be pig-headed and get my way and scream and holler and stamp my feet, and then I don't have a good relationship.
Right.
Or I can say, okay, what is it that you're doing? What is it that I'm doing? And as long as I feel that I can back off 20% and I'm not going down, I'm only doing 20% of what I want to do, because then I'm not in good relationship. But I think that's just a life skill that I think is so important to have. And the fact that it's applicable wherever you do it in life and family. It's exactly the same thing when we're putting together a photo shoot, except we have more time than you do. Like you have to do it like, okay, good. Yes, what do you think? What do you think? And you got to go do it immediately. At least we can collaborate for weeks or months beforehand.
We usually get 1 week to prep.
Wow. Yeah. And so, it's make the decision and do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when we do.
If it's a group number and you've got 12 people that have to have that same replica look, where you're building larger collections in 1 week's time. So if we have to build wigs, make pieces, all of those things have to be done in literally a 2-day prep time.
Wow.
All the other time is when I order. And so it's really crucial to just listen, be an active listener, and pay attention, and course correct and work together as a team.
This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so. It's funny how what we do is has parallels, and yet some of them are so different. Like in doing photo shoots, like if we're doing a show, like the show that we did last year, it was all based on Elvis Presley, one segment. So we had to make 19 Elvis Presley wigs that looked like that, but we wanted them more in the avant-garde, so we didn't want them exact. So we had to take probably what you're familiar with is Warbler, which is what they use for costume making, and we had to form and make these pieces like the shape of it, and then take little pieces of hair, cut them up in black hair, and then spray them on so that they would stay on the dancers when they were working, etc. But we had we didn't know how to do that at the beginning, and we had to research how to do it. And we had like 3-4 weeks where we could make these things, experiment, do all the screw ups. You've got less time. So yours was, I take my hat off to what that's all about for you.
Well, and live is very different. It's one thing to be able to do a look, but that look has to stay on dancers that are literally flipping and aggressively dancing. And it's all about how you secure and how you attach. And of course, we're hairdressers, so we're like, I'm getting this on. This pin is, I'm like, okay, but calm down, because they still have feeling in their head. We've got to be gentle enough, but it has to be secured. And so it's a whole different way of an application. Because I remember I was doing a photo shoot and I'm all like working on the back, and my friend does session stuff all the time. And he was like, don't even worry about the back. We're not shooting that. And I'm so used to 360 where everything needs to be done and locked and loaded and you're ready. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us so now we've got into the hair and all that goes, but for all the people watching and listening right now, let's just pick one, like American Idol, or if you want to switch to whichever one you find more intriguing. What's a day in the life like? Like what would it be like for some? I want some people to visualize, especially if they want to do this. What's the ups and downs? What are, because I'm sure it's not all glorious. You have some stuff that you go and there might be some wrinkles in there. Give us some of that. What's your day like? What's the good parts? What's the wrinkles?
Well, I will say, American Idol, it changes daily. So I travel, I work, I take care of Lionel Richie as well. So I travel with him for all the auditions. And an icon, one of the kindest person you could ever imagine. And I mean, that was my childhood in the 80s. I was like, dang, all night long, like everything. It was just, I have that full circle moment. But so when I'm with Lionel, I'll take care of him, and then I stand by him all day, which is, to me, it's a luxury because he is such a nice guy. And then when we go to live shows, we have pre-production meetings a week prior, so I have an idea of what the contestants are doing, and I can start to put vision boards together of what that look will look like. And when I build my team, I am really making sure I have a great cross-section of talent. Because like, I'm not a great braider. If I need to do a braid to secure something, I'm fine with that. But a decorative braid and braids that are, I am not that guy. So I always want to make sure that I have someone who is a great braider, but I also have someone who does great extensions, and I have multiple people that work with me for textured hair, and all of these different people that really form a great team. So we usually show up about 7:30 on set. And this is for a 5 p.m. live show. And we are in the same room as makeup, and a lot of times we'll tag team. But trust me, it's not just my say. I will do a contestant's hair. If the contestant's not comfortable, I'm like, what would you like to change? I want to make sure they're comfortable. But I also have the network who's going to have an opinion. I have the production company that's going to have an opinion. I have the executive producers and the creative directors every single one of those groups are going to have an opinion of what they want and what they don't like. And number one, you can't take anything personally.
Right.
Because these are people who don't do hair. It's just what they see. And so, and if I'm really committed to a look, I will then go to that battle and go, here's why we want to do this. And they go, well, we like the hair this way. And I go, but that hair was really hot 2 years ago, and it's not really right now.
Yeah.
And this is a contemporary show. And these contestants are performing, and it's current, it's contemporary. And so you definitely have to pick those battles. And we have a full dress rehearsal. So if there's any changes, we do all those changes during the dress rehearsal. The commercials are crunched, meaning we don't have that full amount of time. So we have a crunched amount of time where we do those changes. And then now, social media is a massive part. We have to have them ready to do social media posts because they shoot all of that before the show starts. So when their telephone numbers or text numbers come up, they have that image from earlier in the day. And then we have to make sure we are ready to go live at 5. But I love a live show.
How long is the time from the shoots before the live show?
Well, because we have to get them ready for the live. They have a camera block, and then they have the dress rehearsal. And then after the dress rehearsal, we have the live show. So in between each one of those, we have damage control, if you will. So if there's anything that needs to be corrected, those windows of about an hour and 15 is when we make those changes. But let's not forget, we also have to eat lunch. So I have split teams that, I want to make sure nobody goes into meal penalties or overtime or any of that stuff. So it's not just the hair. It's like facilitating the department. And I have a number 2 person who's my key, Amber. She's amazing. Because a lot of times I will leave at like 3:30 in the afternoon because I have to then go get Lionel ready for all of his press. So my number 2 person is really crucial in maintaining the main stage while I'm with Lionel for his pre-press and getting him ready to go live as well. And, you think, oh, well, every week contestants get eliminated. That's awesome. I mean, not really for them, but it's one of those things where just because there's less people doesn't mean there's less work, because we have guests that are coming in, and like Gene Simmons was a mentor, so we have to take care of him, and then we'll have all of these other people that come in for the finale, and we just want to make sure we facilitate them with whatever needs they have. And so it's quite different from a dance show, because when they dance during the rehearsal, sometimes it is a full redo, depending on what it is. But that rehearsal is crucial, because if there's a hairstyle that falls out, I'm like, all right, this needs more attention. How and what can we do to secure this so we don't have that happen? And that's why the dress rehearsal is so important.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. And I think there's stuff in there that you were told us about. Most people really have no idea what's going on back there. So, but there's, like you said, something that was really interesting there about the planning of all that, and how the planning of, that they might visualize something. And I have a little bit of a parallel, because, when you're doing a photo shoot for a manufacturer, they might want something, but it's really their shoot. And what I loved about what you said was that you have to have, your ego has to come out of it, because it's not your hair. It's not your plan.
Yes.
But how do you plan? There's got to be, is there a planned arc or a story arc that you do with the hair as it goes along because sometimes they can be there for X amount of time. It's a season, but I'm sure that you're doing this not over the whole season. It's how does that play out with the time when you go from 1 week to the next? Is it really that time frame over 13 weeks? Is it less than that? How do you plan for that?
Well, originally it was literally like a 14-week run.
Yeah.
And we know that hair grows about a half an inch a month. So if Clay Aiken season 2 had really short hair, and I was like, Clay, we're growing your hair out. And he was like, I don't know what to do with it. I go, you don't have to do anything. That's why I'm here. And the thing is over that course for the finale, they are so used to seeing him transition and kind of change a little at a time. Because I always tell people it's not like a talk show. It's not like the Oprah Winfrey Show where you want an instant gratification aha moment for that makeover. I want to do little changes frequently, not all at once, over the course of time, because we want to build that celeb. We want to build that superstar. Katy Perry always calls it, just wait till you go through the star wash, because it takes a village. I mean, if you saw the crew that takes care of Katy or J-Lo, I mean, it takes a crew of people. And I always love it because my sisters are like, well, my hair doesn't look like that. And I go, because you didn't put any on. I'm just saying. But it's that process of really cultivating and creating a superstar. Every single person on this planet has the potential to be a superstar with the right team.
Yeah. Yeah. Truer words right there. And I want to let that sink in just for a minute.
For sure.
Because it's just that, everybody out there that's battling and trying to get things done on their own, and they're trying to compete. And I think there's where the difference is. They're trying to compete against somebody who has a team, and they're doing all this work for them. It can be ominous, and I think, and disheartening if they don't understand what they're competing against.
For sure. And, there's other shows, like Legendary, which was on HBO Max. One of my really close friends, Geraldine, ran that show. And I loved it because I was hired as a builder. And so we would build wigs we'd have 2 prep days. And I have to tell you, it was literally one of my favorite shows to work on, because I would show up and I go, what am I working on today? And they would go, we need you to build a swamp princess wig today. And I was like, what the heck is a swamp princess? And they would literally hand me a bag of Michael's Arts and Crafts, and they go, we trust you, figure it out. And I had so much fun doing so many crazy things that you would just never do on a contemporary show. And it just really fed my creative soul. And so many different times we did these Marie Antoinettes, but they wanted me to do the embellishing. And so I'm braiding and caging. Like, there's so many things that we were doing. And when you have someone who's running a show that has so much trust in you, because your actions speak louder than your words, and you show up and you jump in, and even when you don't, I don't know what a swamp princess is, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, I Googled swamp hair, and like the creatures of the Lost Lagoon or whatever it was, they would come up and there's seaweed. There's so much other stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I can take that. But I mean, if I curl this wig really nicely, that's a little princess vibe, and then shove moss in and vines and all of these other things. And the only stipulation they gave me for that prompt, that swamp princess, is they go, the hair has to go back. And I was like, okay. So I tracked it back with gel, and I used some glitter, and it was great. And the drag queen that it went on was from Paris, really picky. And she came up and she was like, this is amazing. And I was like, that's like a badge of honor. You don't even get it. Very few people could make this person happy. And it just kind of opened up a whole new realm of creativity for all of us. And when that show was canceled, I was more sad about that show going away than anything else, because the team was just amazing and we had the best time just being creative.
Yeah. You know what I love that you said in there, Dean, was how if you, and again, I'm taking it back to a relationship with the people, is that how if you really keep that person in mind, whether it's in the salon or at a show or at a competition or whatever that might be. I can remember there was we were working with this Russian model, we were going on the road with her all the time. And to most people, she was a royal pain in the ass.
Right.
Pardon my language. But, I just made fun of her to her face, in a fun way, like a friend would do to another friend. And she always had this. Our whole team was making fun of her on it. Only thing I did is I just did it to her face, because she would go, "Oh, this is so horrible," and she would start her whining, and then she would do something, and I would just make her laugh, and I would just go, "Oh, yes, it's so horrible," and she would laugh like crazy, and then it didn't matter what we did.
Right.
It's just like that. But it's a relationship, and don't let all other people's negativity get in your way when you're trying to just do your job.
Right.
So you can't make excuses, but it's fun, and I love that. I love that you do that. So,
but you also need to find out what works for you.
Yeah,
because you can't take on that energy all day. You've got to do something to block it and just check it and move on and have fun with it. So many, because Simon Cowell, he's been a client of mine for 22 years. I met him when he first came to Idol, and everybody's like, "Is he really that mean?" And I go, "He's one of the nicest people." He hates it when I say that because he thinks I'm ruining his reputation, which I think is hilarious. But he is one of the nicest guys, and there's a difference when you match that energy. And it's exactly what I mean. Even if it's that negativity, when you check someone like that, it either is going to really piss them off and you'll probably be exited from that space, or it checks them and they understand what they're doing. Because sometimes people are oblivious to it.
Yeah.
And he's always been super kind to me and my family. And I think having kids really softened him up a lot to the public, but he's always been really great to me. Super picky, but I appreciate when people know what they want and they can articulate it.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between being a pain for being a pain, or for upsetting people just to upset them.
Right.
And I know that at the beginning, a lot of people didn't like him, for that.
Right.
But I would go, well, I wouldn't want that person on for making $1 million. So what are you getting so upset about just because you told him the truth?
Right.
But here's my question. Did that happen to him where they, let's face it, every show, you've got to have some drama on the show to make it real. Was that appointed to him, or is it something he just did in previous shows and that became his trademark, or what?
No, I think he was just like that because he's been in the music industry for a long time. And if you don't speak up and say what's on your mind, you will get overlooked and you become a yes person.
Yeah.
And he just is, he's
I'm
not
saying, yeah.
Right.
Does that make me the yes person?
And he just leaned into that. And that was so new in the US because no one would ever say you're a horrible singer because we just wouldn't do that. But sometimes, people just need to be checked, I guess.
Yeah. You mentioned something in there about, because I know that you do classes as well. Because here's going to be the thing. Everybody's going to listen to this and think, how can I get into this? How can I do that? And I know that you have some classes that you teach.
Yes.
So could you give us just a brief oversight on what those classes are? Because I want to go back and just forgive me for a second because I wanted to write this down. I haven't hardly looked at anything that we've done here, so I got to find the question of where I had it. But here's what people said about the classes, and this was your Set Hair 101 boot camp, and the drag wig styling. And I think I want to come out. I'd love to take that class just so, because I love making wigs. That's been my specialty. What I love, making them from scratch. But I would really love to do that. But here's what people said about Dean. He said he's personable, he's realistic, it's fun. You learn the secrets from behind the scenes. He's easy to understand. And this is one that I liked. They said he builds my confidence because I never thought that I could ever do this. And they said you put it in such an easy way that everybody comes away feeling great about themselves and what they can do.
I love that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the class?
Well, I've just like in the beginning, I was always trying to find classes that would teach me how to do hair for TV and film. And they're not, I found one and I've never ever seen anything else. And so when I moved to LA and started working on set, everything was trial and error for me. I had never been on a soundstage. I didn't know all the ends. I didn't know what a fire lane was. I didn't know all of these things that are on a huge soundstage, and terms and chain of command. I'm like, what does a grip do? What does, what does a utility? All of these things, I had no clue. But I was in the union because I started non-union. Then I got into the union when I was working on Idol. And if you're a union member, they expect you to know all these things. And I had no clue. And when I was on set, I hustle like crazy. They're like, oh, we need to put this and we need to do a wig wrap. And I was like, I don't know how to do a wig wrap. And I'm like, hustling everybody around me, watching them and replicating what they're doing. And that's how I was learning. And I was like, there's no place for people to learn. So the reason I created the Set Hair 101 is because it demystifies all of those things. I didn't know how to do a fracture wrap for a wig. I didn't know how to do all of these other things. I didn't know how to measure someone's head for a wig. I didn't know how to make a casting for that. And those are all the things that we talk about in the Set 101, and we have Set 102 that just elevates it out, like creating skull caps and like you said, being able to create a wig from scratch that might not be one that you're going to use ready to wear every day. This is a specialty thing for a scene or creative. And for me, that's one of the reasons I moved into my loft, is because I wanted to create space for that.
Yeah.
And Johnny, who does the drag wig styling class with me, he worked on that show Legendary, and we built so many drag wigs. And he used to work at Disneyland for 10 years. And so he did the character wigs and all of these things of how, to manipulate synthetic hair to work to your advantage. And I was like, these are fun classes, and it's for people who want to do what I do. And all I want to do is mentor, because when you really think about it, we have to relay our knowledge to others in order for the craft to carry on. And there's so many people in this industry that I've learned from who are no longer around. And I feel like it is a responsibility to create that magic, if you will, and enlighten people. Because trust me, if I was, born and raised on a farm in Iowa, a member of a 15-kid family, if I can do it, anyone can do it, providing you know what to do and you're coachable.
Yeah.
And everybody who's come to the classes, it's been a really great experience. I don't take more than 10 people at all, because I want to make sure everybody gets that individual attention, because I've been to big classes and I feel overwhelmed and feel like I'm not heard. And 8 is my sweet spot for attendees. And I have another Set Hair 101 class coming up. I believe it's in September, the first weekend of that. And there's a drag class coming up in July. And those are the things that I love, because we're looking for new styles. And you don't even need to be a hairdresser to come to the drag styling course. Yeah. It's just if you have a fascination for styling. And we had so many people that came to the drag class and they were overwhelmed. They're like, I've never done this. I don't know what. And I go, we're doing it step by step. We are doing this section. We're going to teach you exactly how to roll. And trust me, by the end of these 2 days, you will be surprised at your level of success. And people were like, damn, I did that. Yeah. Like, they were so mesmerized. And I go, yeah. And you get to take it home with you because it's yours. And we had the best time.
You know what? I don't know where. I didn't get a chance to hardly ask you any of the questions I had really written down, other than a few. But I've got to have you back on here again so we can talk more. I'm
always available.
And I want to run to our rapid fire right now,
yes.
I'm going to throw stuff at you. First thing that comes to your brain. What turns you on in the creative process?
The thing that creates magic with me is when I can use unrelated items and create awesome hair.
Love it. And what stifles the creative process for you?
Negative people on a team.
Bingo. A thing in life in general that you love the most?
My mom kept a diary since she was 12. She died at 94. And when she passed, I started journaling. Every day, it has changed me completely.
Wow. Love that. And in life as a whole, what do you dislike the most?
It goes back to negative people because I just don't want to surround myself with any of that energy.
Yeah. In our industry, what do you love the most?
In this industry, I love that people are creative and open. We touch people for a living. I take it really seriously. And I just, people count on us for taking care of them. And I just think that's a great responsibility.
And in our industry, what do you dislike the most?
Ego.
Yeah, because it can run rampant, doesn't it? A person that you admire the most?
Person that in or out of hair?
Doesn't matter. Anything, just the one that hits you.
In hair, I have 3 mentors: Anne Bray, Sharon Blaine, and Tam Walsh. Those 3 have inspired me so much, and each one of them has built my confidence up more than I could ever even imagine.
Yeah, love them. Your most prized possession?
My most prized possession? Oh, geez. Do you know, I mean, the awards and everything are really great, and they're wonderful. And I feel like I strive even harder to make my family proud. And my greatest accomplishment is when I get an Emmy nomination and I can take my family as my +1. It's such an honor to be able to do that. Like physical possessions, I don't know. I'd probably say I have a really awesome picture of my mom that I just love.
Oh, that's sweet. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned Sharon Blaine, and I think we just did one with her, I think just the beginning of last week, and I think she's going to be on our next week's session.
Well, tell her I said hello, because I adore her. She's great.
Yeah, she is. I'm trying to get her organized with a couple. There's a trio of them with Sharon, with Sonia Dove, Sharon, and Candy. Candy Shaw, and then I'm trying to get all 3 of them together in one, which I think should be hilarious. A person that you wish you could meet?
You know, a person I've always wanted to meet was Jimmy Carter.
Oh.
I think
we've got a couple. We got to make it happen. He's only got a couple of years. Well, hopefully more than a couple.
It's close, but you know, he has just been, you know, the stuff that he's done for Habitat Humanity, and just the relationship with him and his wife and how they loved each other. There's just something very inspiring about him. Yeah,
I agree. Something that people don't know about you.
People that don't know about me. Oh God, I'm an open book. That is the hardest. I'm pretty transparent. I mean, but you know what? I have to say, I think we all have our insecurities. And so those are the things that, you know, I work on, and I've been, you know, addressing those the past 3 years, and just enlighten.
Yeah. It's funny that the number of people that I talk to on here and insecurity, or, you know, just, you know, being worried about being found out as a fraud or whatever. We all know those feelings. So it's interesting. If you had a month off, where would you go? What would you do?
If I had a month off,
can't be hair.
If I had a month off, I would probably either take a cruise for a month, because I love cruises. I've been on like 20 some. I would either do that, or I would rent a house in Hawaii and just walk everywhere. That's another favorite place.
Yeah, love it. Excuse me. Something that terrifies you.
Anything underwater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's claustrophobia. I don't know. I love the water. I just don't want to be in it.
Yeah, or under it specifically. Yeah, it's good for drinking or mixing with drinks,
Yeah,
right?
but how funny that I love cruising. I'm on top of
Yeah,
it,
well, there you go.
not in it.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Favorite curse word?
I take it from my mom. She would always say, "Son of a biscuit." She says it. She would say it all the time. It just cracked me up.
Yeah, huh? Love it. Favorite comfort food?
Favorite comfort food? I love ice cream.
Oh, what flavor?
I
Or
love
any?
anything with caramel.
Oh, me too. And peanut butter. Um, Something in the industry that you haven't done but you want to.
I've always wanted to work on a complete film. I've helped out on, like Hunger Games and, a bunch of different movies, but I just don't want to have to like uproot from my home for 3 months and go on location. That's the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
thing that bugs. And they don't shoot many films in LA.
yeah. The okay, so the let's see, where am I at here? Uh, if you had one do-over in your life, what would it be?
One do over. One do over. I don't know. Do you know what? Honestly, when I bought my first house in LA, I wished I would have done a better budget because that house needed a lot of
Oh,
work.
uh huh. Okay, here's one that you'll find really interesting. Um, Tomorrow you couldn't do hair. What would you do?
Oh, I would either be an interior designer, an event organizer. Those two speak to me quite a bit.
Yeah, love it. Okay, now, so I've got one last question here before we sign off at the end. But before I do that, how do if people want to get on your classes or they want to get a hold of you or find out how you can help them? Where would they go?
To my website, which is hollywoodhairguy.com. There's a little menu, click courses, and it gives you all the details. And you can sign up for my email list. And the email list is really kind of fun too, because we do a lot of different things that you don't necessarily think about in entertainment. It's like,
Right.
how do you land your first gig? All of those things. And of course, my Instagram, dbano, and my
Yeah,
TikTok, both of those have really great tips, tricks, and just kind of a behind the scenes of what I'm doing on a daily.
yeah, I agree. Okay, so last question. If you had one wish for our industry, what would it be?
Um, One wish for our industry. Um, it's and I really enjoyed hair shows back in the day in the 80s and 90s, and just the level of participation. I remember going
Hmm.
to, the Chicago show, and it would be just massive in this energy. And there's definitely energy now, but it is very different. And especially, my wish would be probably more control over retail,
Oh, interesting.
because
Very
most people
interesting.
just buy it
Yeah,
online away from the salon, so it takes money out of that industry. So probably that, honestly.
yeah, yeah. Well, Dean, I just have to say, first of all, son of a biscuit, it was great to have you on
Yeah,
here.
right.
It was a really, really, really good time, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you
It
for
was a
the opportunity.
pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, anything that I can do to help or whatever, I'm always there. So just thank you, and it was a pleasure. And listen, for all of you people listening and watching, what we'd really appreciate if whatever platform you're on, if you could just go onto that platform and just give us a good rating on there, just so we get more people that are watching, great people that we have out there like Dean. We'd really appreciate you. So in the meantime, Dean, absolute pleasure. And son of a biscuit, we got to have you back on here again.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.